Indie comic time. It's a bit late, I've been sick. I made a post asking which of some of the comics I picked up you want to talk about, and essentially it was all of them. Even though Batman did end up leading, which is hardly a surprise, we did a full video on Batman, a short on Escape, and now we're gonna come back with another full one on Everything Dead and Dying. Many of you were really intrigued by this one. It's the cover, this decaying cow. Many of you were curious, so we're gonna talk about it. This is Everything Dead and Dying #1. It's close to time of release, so spoilers, but there's a lot of interesting things to talk about with this one. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and if you like us taking these forays away from talking about the big two, be sure to give this a like and a hype. It really does help spread the word, and it's a great way to be able to talk about these indie books, which a lot of the time, sometimes they come and go very quickly, and sometimes people miss them. Even I miss them sometimes. And for the ones that are ongoing, having that kind of awareness and support can keep them going. I've seen more than one book not be able to keep going just because it doesn't have the sales and people don't know about it. And then people hear about it and they're like, wow, that was great, I would have bought that. This series is solicited as a miniseries. So Everything Dead and Dying is written by Tate Brombal, with art by Jacob Phillips, and colors by Pip Martin. And for those who may be wondering, because I did get the question when I posted, is the son of Sean Phillips? Sean Phillips does all those crime comics with Ed Brubaker, and Jacob has colored some of those and is now off doing his own work at Image, which is where this miniseries is being released, although it's also tied to Tiny Onion, which is James Tynion IV's independent production house, which has this one video on their YouTube channel explaining what they are that feels like you're watching the Hypnotoad channel from Futurama. But that is neither here nor there. Just what is this comic about? Well, it's a zombie tale, but it manages to do something a bit different, which is a feat because there's a lot of zombie work out there. This one has a lot of heart, but also layering to it. And the way that it presents its reality is also narratively interesting. The story follows Jack Chandler, who, as the story goes on, the reader is made aware of, is living in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, and he has been doing so for 12 years. Jack's worldview is quite deliberately illustrated and quite regimented, which is also on purpose. The past, / his retreats into imagining that world as his daily life, are bright and colorful, a contrast against the dour and oft blood-filled reality he truly lives in. Although there are moments where that intrudes upon, it creates these kind of disconcerting breaks. Jack seems to try to spend as much time as he can maintaining this kind of illusionary life. At this point, even though it's a completely ordinary life, a fantasy. Because Jack is trapped in a kind of horrific Groundhog Day. For while there are zombies everywhere, they're going about their daily routine, specifically their last day. Or their last day as Jack remembers it, because that may be part of what's going on. And so Jacob is living out that last day over and over again, maintaining it and making sure that it happens. For Jack himself seems to be immune from the infection for some reason. There are of course some questions to pose as to how exactly reliable of a narrator can he be based on how long he's been doing this, and also based on some brief snippets that kind of flash in between certain panels that show that before this routine was established, there may have been some moments where things weren't quite as controlled as he's now made them. There are just certain times where it's clear that other things have happened, or that he's trying not to think about certain things. Now, Jack is a farmer, and that's something that he comes back to over and over again. He's kind of taken upon himself to maintain the town the same way he does his farm and the livestock thereon. He's making sure they're around, he's feeding them, he's ensuring that there's a food supply. He's farming / shepherding them. Now, the routine he's most desperate to maintain is his own personal one, and that's the last idyllic morning with his husband and daughter. There are just certain details that help keep him grounded. How his daughter comes and wakes him up, how he goes downstairs to the kitchen and there's pancakes, because this day before everything went wrong was kind of the culmination of starting to feel like his life was really on track. You spend a lot of this issue inside of Jack's mind, learning his history, and so we learn that Jack finally felt that he had everything that he wanted, even if everything else in the world was not perfect, and he still had this past of not being accepted and perhaps not being fully accepted by the town still. His world that he had created was secure, but he hadn't fully gotten over or come to terms with everything either. There was unresolved issues, and then the world ended. And now he has nothing to do but ponder and think. Or try not to think, as he's trying to ignore some clear indications that things are starting to get worse. Now, like most monsters or horror concepts, there's more to zombies than meets the eye, or there can be. Of course, you can just go with your standard, gory, it wants to eat your brains kind of zombie, and you can have fun with it in that way. And you can still do a really entertaining and even compelling work with a zombie that's more focused on the gore and the physical dangers that zombies pose, especially if they're those cursed zombies that can run. But zombies and the zombie infection itself can often serve as metaphors for other things. Ways to examine other societal issues or bring them to the fore. And as of issue 1, while there are gory moments, and there's a backdrop of just grisly reality that encroaches on the life that Jack is trying to maintain, overall this work is far more introspective. There are a few ways that the zombie infection and the zombies could be viewed. Some stem from when the work was originally conceived, and some are just different ways you can read it. In some ways, this work can be seen to work through fears of monotony and routine maintenance of a status quo, being stuck in a dominant hegemonic structure or worldview even if it doesn't align with reality or one's sense of self. And Jack's sense of self, outside of of his subject positioning has some identity model of change overtones psychologically, with how much he allows his identity as a farmer to impact how he responds to the apocalypse. He just keeps going. He farms, therefore he is. Now, some of that is also just him trying to maintain his sanity. He needs something to do. What else is he gonna do? Just going through the motions. The cycle of life, the routine, the way that he seeks to maintain something that could be overall toxic because of the small joy and stability it gives him, and his inability to think of what else to do also plays with some symptoms of depression. The way that he's the only one seemingly not impacted, at least at the start, confirms the otherness he's felt all of his life. Only it's now from everyone, even the people he loves. Although that's just more an interesting character detail. There's a quiet, desperate horror to this, in the way that Jack will just superimpose the healthy versions of people in his life over top of them. Just block out that reality and just talk to the people who are his friends and try and work things through, because what else can he do? In that, you see a lot of loneliness and isolation, which are definitely things a lot of people can identify with. For the majority of issue 1, he's the only alert, aware person in a world of people monotonously going about their lives in aimless routine, but also interestingly, a routine that he is the one partially keeping them in, or making sure that they are able to go through it. There are some questions to think about, like what happens if he wasn't there? It's interesting. This is one of those more personal horror works as of issue 1, although how it ends means that there could be a sudden genre shift as Jack's routine is violently disrupted, and maybe we could see an examination of if that's actually a bad thing outside of from Jack's perspective. One of the ways you can tell this issue is working structurally is that it really sucks you into Jack's routine, so that when things do change, it jolts the reader as well into, wait, that's not how things go. The repetition in events, the mirrored dialogue and imagery, it's all very deliberate. Now, of course, this issue will not be for everyone. I have to say this issue because we're looking at 1. And because this is a mini-series, the overall impression once complete could be very different from just looking at issue 1. That's the thing with just looking at issue 1 in general, things change, time of recording. But as for this issue as it stands, if one is looking for more fast-paced work where the zombie threat is more direct and less of an all-encompassing existential dread, then this may not land. A lot of this issue is Jack thinking about his life, about his history, not in a piteous woe is me kind of way, but just in a pondering, working through it, and then you see how that relates to the environment that he's currently in. It's the kind of work that warrants examination, but also doesn't demand it. So if one doesn't engage with it on a deeper level, it may come across as a bit more disposable, and miles will vary on how enjoyable it is for the reader. And of course, some of you may be saying, Sasha, it's not that deep. You're overanalyzing. You're overthinking. To which I say, it's my default state. This is how I enjoy things. Also, if one doesn't like Jack, then this may be hard to engage with because he is the focal point. And if one doesn't enjoy how much time he's spending thinking about himself and finds himself focused, that could be something else that jars them out of it. Or if they don't agree with how he's reacting or spends his time during this apocalypse, then this may be hard to engage with. Some may also just be burned out with zombies. No more, please. There were also some who I saw who were not interested in this because of the character's sexuality. That was a very small subset, at least in the avenues I frequent, but it was something that came up. For me, the family dynamic is very key to the story because it provides multiple reasons why Jack is clinging to this illusion. Partially because of the fact that he had to go through so much to be able to be open with his relationship and get married and have a child, and then all of that is just ripped away from him. There's an extra layer of cruelty to it. Now, while some of Everything Dead and Dying may seem very specific to certain subject positionings or may resonate more with certain groups of people, there are also many universalities present. The need to keep one's family and life together. Those feelings of things just being ripped away. Feelings of just encroaching dread in a situation. That pain of everything was going well and now it's over. Even just that kind of fog of waking up and going through the same motions day after day after day, and for what? Brombal has an interesting blurb about this book. He described it as an ode to everything that came before and everything that refuses to die. So I'm personally very interested to see how this develops, what route it takes, what kind of commentary it ends up making, because it's clear that it's going to be something. Also, it must be noted that Brombal did come up with this idea in 2020, so if you are reading this and getting any kind of COVID vibes, that's why. That is definitely another lens through which one can examine the work. I think it's obvious that I was very engaged by this. I flipped it over, so it's glaring at you less. It spoke to me, I guess. But that's just my opinion, and I want to hear yours. Did you read this? Did it work for you? Do you feel like there are many layers? Do you think I've just tripped down a rabbit hole? Not your cup of tea? Too many zombies. Please share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please hold YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hype, hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comments with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.